Hello, and welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Whether you're going for that next promotion, looking for a job, or making a career pivot, I'll teach you how to navigate it all so you can have the career you want. You're listening to episode 55. There's been something that's been going on in my mind, literally for my entire working life. I'll be straight about that. But more recently, because I find that a lot of clients come to me feeling kind of confused about how to leverage their career history and accomplishments towards the new thing they want to do. And it's so interesting because they even see some of their past as an obstacle to doing what they want to do. For example, if you do not have a college degree, say you went, but life happens like it does, like it happened for me, or you're in the midst of education and you get an incredible job offer and you decide, hey, I'm going to jump into that because that seems like a good thing to do because someone's seeing my value, without a degree. It happens for sure. But anytime you see something in your career that feels like it's an obstacle to what you want, I want to challenge that assumption for you today. Because when you start to think about it, nothing ever is wasted. Not a thing. Even if your degree is in something that you aren't even doing in your career right now. And the research shows that only 25% of people are actually working in an occupation associated with their degree. So there's a whole bunch of us out there who found our way somehow without leveraging our degree. So when you start realizing that absolutely nothing is wasted, including the degree that you walked away from, the education that you walked away from in pursuit of something else, anything at all that your brain is telling you is an obstacle, flip the script on that and start to look for ways that it might actually have added value to your life, to your career. It's a way for you to start to break through what feels like has you stuck or might be preventing you from getting what you want when you first just decide. It's literally just a decision, friends, to decide that nothing has been a waste. It might have been an interesting detour. Maybe it didn't pan out exactly the way you thought it would, but you can redefine that for yourself. You can create the narrative about that you want in your own head and in a way that serves you. And here's why I'm so passionate about this. Because as I was navigating my career, and all of the ups and downs, restructured out a few times. I got a demotion at one point. We won't go there, retail, enough said. But every time that happened, I looked at it as, what is next for me? And I'm not saying that my brain operated perfectly, positive thinking, all that. It doesn't. I'm human. And, stuff happens. I get it. It's not always great. But I do have some natural behavioral strengths that lean that way. It's actually why I really love to coach, because looking for the golden nuggets of value, maximizing potential is something that I love to do for other people. And it's something that I've done for myself. And the way to do that is, as I said, number one, nothing is wasted. And number two, you're looking for the common threads. You're looking for the way some people might say it, the essence of yourself in all of the roles and occupations that you've had over the years. There is something there under the surface that aligns to you and who you are as a human with your unique qualities, attributes, characteristics, and strengths that is a common thread. And when you start looking for the common thread, you start seeing possibilities. And it's so weird how that happens, that actually acknowledging your past, that there's some weird common thread going on there, and that absolutely nothing about it was wasted, actually gives you the opportunity to see potential for yourself going forward. It's kind of like, what's that old saying, those who fail to see history are doomed to repeat it. It doesn't have to be doomed. It can actually be acknowledging your history, looking for the common threads, looking for those underpinnings of workplace strengths and behaviors, actually gives you some insight to what you might want to do, not at all in a limiting way, but in a way that's full of possibilities and options. I think I mentioned last week that I'm listening to Rob Bell's audiobook, Handling Your Fire. Now, I jumped right to the burnout chapter, I'll admit, because I have so many clients who are suffering from burnout and who have, as I mentioned in that last podcast episode, these burnout undercurrents going on that really require you to dig a little deeper to figure out what's happening. Well, at the beginning of the book, Rob is talking about the thread and the setup. And the thread is a lot of what I just talked about. It's really a self-awareness. It's understanding who you are at a deeper level and how your uniqueness infiltrates, influences, informs all of the things that you do. The setup, as he calls it, is the way your thread, the way you do the things that you do. There's lots of options when it comes to that. And the setup is really just the expression of who you are. The what you do is the form, is the setup. The who you are is the thread. So when you start thinking of it in this way, and you start thinking that who you are is the constant, you're going to evolve, you're going to change, you're going to develop. But one of the things I love about the personal strengths survey that have all my participants in Job Search Field Guide take part in is because it shares an amazing list of strengths, characteristics, all of the goodies and goodness and awesomeness that you bring to your roles. But the cool thing about it is it's not limiting. And it's all strengths, and it's all kind of this really amazing way to validate everything that you bring to the table so that you start seeing how this has been part of you for forever, that this is just what makes you tick. This is the way your brain works. This is your behavior. And when you start to get that first, then you realize the setup or the form or the expression of you actually has multiple ways of intersecting the world. I don't know if I'm saying that quite right, but there's lots and lots of ways for you to express who you are in a job. Another interesting thing that I learned from Donald Clifton was that oftentimes when you are attracted to something, there's something about a role, there's something about a job description that suddenly sparks for you. And it might be something new even. It might be something that you've never actually done before, but there's something that resonates for you, then it's very likely part of you, part of that essence, part of that thread of who you are. That's actually why you're attracted to it. So it deserves a little attention. It deserves to be investigated, maybe even developed, so that you can use it in your next setup, your next job, your career move, the thing that you want to pivot to. This is what gives you the sense of possibility, self-awareness, and then understanding that there's lots and lots of ways for you to express your skills, strengths, and abilities in jobs. These are the common threads that you will see throughout your career when you start looking for them. And you're going to have different chapters. I think back on my career, and every time I was laid off in a restructure, I would think, what is this next chapter going to be about? What is it about the roles I have had and the role I'm leaving that are my favorite things to do? How do I connect with those favorite things? And how might I use those in my future role? Because it's absolutely possible to look at your job search from that perspective. You don't have to keep doing the things that you don't want to do, but you've got to decide that for yourself first. And then you can do fun things like Boolean search strings on LinkedIn using just your strengths as keywords and see what kinds of roles come up in the search results. It is so cool, and it starts to open up your eyes to what's possible when you do that. But then you get to decide which thread you're going to tug on, which thread you're going to pull and say, no, this is the new thing I'm going to do. This is the thing I'm going to leverage. So not being tied to doing something just because you've always done it is such a key component of a successful job search. A job search that actually feels good instead of hard. I get so tired of seeing posts over and over. A job search is hard. Listen, if you think of it that way, that's exactly the way it's going to be. When you start thinking that your lack of degree is an obstacle, in your mind, it's an obstacle, which means you're going to be transferring that obstacle thought in energy to the other person. It's just physics, my friends. I'm not trying to be woo-woo here. I'm just trying to talk about the physics of the way things work. When you actually decide that there's nothing about your career history that is an obstacle for your future, it stops being an obstacle at that moment. Now, you may have to remind yourself occasionally, we do have those primitive brains that like to toss up some unhelpful thoughts on occasion. But you can just go back to that decision. No, it's not an obstacle. It wasn't a failure. It was just something that didn't turn out the way I thought it might. There is absolutely nothing about your career that's a waste or a failure. And there are a lot of common threads in there that once you start paying attention will give you clues as to what might be next for you. And when you let go of the past, when you release those emotional attachments, when you realize, like I had to at one point, that my career in the footwear industry was over, maybe I grieved a little bit. Of course. I love that industry. It was amazing. I learned so much. I made some great connections and developed some awesome relationships. But when I decided that that chapter was over, but that the value from it went with me, I'm talking empowering kinds of stuff, my friends. That's exactly how I want you to look at your career. The chapter may be over, but the value goes right with you. And if you're looking to do something different, if you're looking to make a pivot and you feel like you have to take a step backwards or start over because it's a new industry, I'm telling you, you are not giving yourself enough credit, because you actually don't have to do that. There's ways to communicate your value in your resume. There's ways to communicate your value in those interviews, to capture the imagination of the person, to help them start to see the same narrative that you've got playing around in your head, which is you're ready for a promotion. That next move in your career is logical. If it's logical for you, if it's a no-brainer for you, and you know how to talk about it in that same way, it's going to be a no-brainer for the people you're talking to. Telling you, I see it every single day. And I want you to have those same experiences. So please look for your common threads. Look for the things that are strengths for you, that are just what makes you tick. That it's not your occupations, it's not those forms that created value. It was you. And you are you wherever you go, in whatever way you choose to express your strengths, skills, and experience in your career path. Hang on to that truth. And of course, if you ever want to talk about it, you know I love to talk about it, and you have those opportunities for one-on-one coaching where you get to ask your questions, get an answer in writing, or even better yet, raise your hand when I do live coaching once a week inside Job Search Field Guide, because that's where we can look each other in the eye and I can talk about your specific situation, and you will walk away feeling far more empowered and realizing that there's no obstacles. There's just opportunities. All right, until next time. If you like listening to this podcast, and you are going to love my program, Job Search Field Guide, this is a unique opportunity. I offer group coaching alongside a 5-step process to help you land a job quickly. So I hope you will join me in Job Search Field Guide. This is going to be revolutionary to your career journey and your job search, and you get lifetime access. So find it at elissashuck-careercoach.com, and I will see you there.